Hello everybody. So in this video I'm going to show how to make what in Denmark they call a kagecreme, which is also just known as vanilla custard in America. I'm just going to do this step by step, just show you how I would do this. There's and I'll add a link to the instructions with the recipe and everything, but this is just for those of you who would like to see it done, and you can actually do it with me at the same time, because this is real time. So anyway, to start off with, I'm going to do 250 grams or milliliters of milk. This is whole milk, and there is also on the website, there's also US customary measurements, so you can get this in cups and tablespoons and everything. But I do this in grams. So, and then on the recipe it also says to add the vanilla and the salt to this. But in Denmark we have powdered vanilla, so I'm gonna add it to the egg mixture instead. But in America, you would add the vanilla to this because it is liquid. I mean, if you want to, you really don't have to. The vanilla, it's such a small amount of liquid, it doesn't really matter that much. But anyway, and I'm just going to add 2 pinches of salt. Just like that. And now I'm going to take this, you won't see this part, but I'm going to take this and put it over on my stovetop on medium heat. Well, medium low actually, because the amount is pretty small. So I'm going to put on medium low while I mix together the rest of the ingredients. So I'm going to take 2 bowls. I'm going to separate my eggs. Separating the eggs, that just means that you separate the yolk from the whites. So I'll take my egg and I'll crack it. And then this part's a little bit messy, so just be prepared for those of you who are new to this. The white will separate into this container, and I just need the yolks. Now you just try your best to get as much of the yolk by itself. I think that's pretty good. And in this recipe, it says 2 egg yolks, however, which is about 40 grams. But these eggs that I'm using, these are on sale from the store. Normally I use homegrown eggs, and they're pretty large. These store-bought eggs are pretty small, so I'm actually going to use 3 egg yolks, because I don't know if you can see it on the video, but that egg yolk that I just barely put in only weighs 13 grams, and that's just not enough yolk. There we go. Let's see if I can get this open. There we go. So that's definitely something to keep or take into consideration. The size of egg that you're using matters in a recipe, because these yolks are really small, because these are small eggs. I'm going to add an extra yolk. Now that's about 40 grams. I'm going to rinse my hands really quick. Alright, so from there I'm going to add some sugar and the vanilla as well as some other dry ingredients. Now this, I'm just going to save this and make some something else with it and just put it in the fridge later. But now I'm gonna just add 15 grams, or nope, sorry, 75 grams of sugar. And then I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of vanilla. Now, because this is powdered vanilla, I'm going to use a little sieve. That's just because this vanilla gets pretty clumpy. So it's just something to keep in mind. I usually like to put my dry ingredients, my like baking powder, baking soda, vanilla, through a sieve. Okay, and then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, which is 15 grams. And that also is kind of clumpy too. So I'm going to put that through a sieve. Alrighty, and from there I'm just going to mix these ingredients together. And I just use a fork. Now it is going to be pretty thick right now, but that's because we don't have too many liquids in it. That is okay. See, and this is where you could decide if you wanted to add, if you have American vanilla or vanilla paste of some sort, you could absolutely use that instead if you want it to be a little bit more runny consistency. However, you'll see later on that we're going to add some of the hot milk to it and mix it together. So the egg yolks in this recipe, they're very important because they are what makes the egg yolks and the cornstarch are very important in this recipe because they are what makes the custard thicken and become gelatinous. All right, now I have like another little container. I'm going to take some butter, and I'm going to do 10 grams. Now you want these in little pieces, but 10 grams is really not that much. You want them in little pieces so that they can distribute throughout the custard when in the end, because this isn't going to happen right now, this happens in the end where we add the butter. Okay. So I'm going to do my best to bring the my saucepan over to the camera so that you guys can see it. But I'm going to pause the video right now. I'm going to wait. I'm going to mix just keep an eye on the milk until it starts to steam. And you just want like a rubber spatula, or you could even use a spoon, but preferably a rubber spatula. Once it starts to steam, that is when we start to add, we remove it from the heat really quick and we start to add this mixture. Okay, so here we are. My milk is steaming pretty consistently. So now I'm gonna add a little, just a couple of tablespoons or so of this to the egg mixture. Now, if you got to make sure to mix it really consistently and just do it one at a time, or else it'll scramble. So we start with small amounts so that it's manageable. Now the reason why we add it into this mixture first, because we're going to pour it back into the milk. But we start off by adding the hot milk to the egg yolk mixture to avoid scrambling. If I was to just pour this directly in here, it has a much higher chance of scrambling the eggs, because it's a lot more, it's a lot higher volume of hot liquid. Okay, and then I'll add another teaspoon or tablespoon. And something I would like to also note is I didn't have the camera off for very long. I just barely had enough time to clean up, and then my milk was already steaming, and that's because it's such a small amount. If you do a larger amount, it's going to take more time. Okay, so now we're going to pour our egg mixture into the milk mixture, and making sure that you're moving it around constantly so that it doesn't scramble, as mentioned before. Okay, and then from there, we're going to put it back on the heat, and I'm just going to stir it consistently. I'm not going to stop stirring it. And then I'll bring the camera back on when we get to the right consistency. So as it heats up, the starch, the cornstarch, it will start to coagulate, and so will the egg yolks. Those will start to cook as well, and this will start to thicken and turn into a custard, because as of right now it's just a sweet egg milk sauce. Okay, so now we're back from the stove top. I mix this for about 5 minutes or so on medium, I'd probably say medium high. Now something that's important to note is this is such a small amount that I feel okay using a rubber spatula. However, if this was twice this amount, or I was making even more than that, I would want to use a whisk. And that's because the last 30 seconds or so of mixing this, it happens pretty fast. You need to be mixing at a pretty high speed rather than just kind of leisurely stirring it. And that's just because of coagulation. That's as the starches and as egg yolks as they coagulate and they start to thicken the custard, you don't want clumps in it, and so you need to move it around pretty quickly. So yeah, this is about what it needs to look like. If you wanted to have it thinner or thicker, you could change the amount of time you have it on the stove. So if I wanted a thicker custard than this, I would keep it on the stove longer and just keep mixing it and allow the moisture to evaporate even more. And if I wanted it thinner, it would be the opposite. I would take it off sooner. But this is about the consistency you want the standard custard at. And same with what they call K-creme in Denmark. So now I'm going to add the butter to it. And then I'm going to mix that around. And you could use margarine or shortening or whatever solid fat you have. I prefer butter because I like the taste of it. The flavor is much more desirable in my opinion, and it's healthier for you, but I know plenty of people who use margarine, and that is just fine as well. I've even heard of people using lard as well. So just mix that around until it's uniform until the butter is gone. And then we're going to cover it up and put it in the fridge. So, because this is a small amount, it is okay to just cover it up with some plastic wrap and stick it in the fridge, because it's only like this thick. I mean, that's what, 1.5 inches, 3 centimeters, something like that. From the bottom of the pot to the top of the custard, it's not very thick because it's such a small amount. However, if we were doing a double portion or even a higher volume, we would need to take it and pour it into like a casserole dish or a some sort of ceramic or metal. Ideally, metal is a lot better than ceramic, or glass. But if you don't have metal, the next best thing is glass, and if you don't have glass, the next best thing is ceramic. But just a larger, flatter container so that it can cool down a lot faster. Because if it doesn't cool down quickly, like within a couple of hours, we're getting into the area of bad bacteria and poor food hygiene. And you don't want to, you don't want to be made sick from the stuff you make at home. Now you'll notice that I'm pushing it all the way down to the custard so that it's touching and there's not very many air bubbles. Now that is important because if I was to just put the plastic wrap over the top or put a lid on it, it'll continue to condensate. I think that's what the word is in English. It'll continue to give off condensation, and all the liquid in it, the water in it will rise to the top. And what that will do is it will dry out the custard, and then it'll make it so that you'll have little dry lumps in the custard when you go to mix it up afterwards. So we push down the plastic wrap all the way down to the custard, and it makes it so that it cannot release any more moisture, and it will just retain all the moisture, and it'll remain one uniform, consistent consistency. So that is very important. So I will put this in the fridge for at least 3 hours or so, and ideally, though, if you could do it overnight, I mean, that's all the better. But at least 3 hours is good. And then we can use it however we want to. And that's, I mean, you can eat it because it's custard. It's basically pudding. You can eat it. You can use it in some different recipes. And I will also add the link to some of those recipes. I have some Danish recipes that you use this custard in that are very delicious. So anyway, that's that. That is K-crème, or vanilla custard, from start to finish. If you have any questions, by all means, leave a comment down in the comment section or send me an email, and I'll do my best to get back to you. I also just want to say that this is just how I have been taught to make custard. This is how we were taught at school. This is how I do it. There are other ways to do it. So if you have a more efficient way of doing it, or you want to make some alterations to how it's done, that's totally fine. That is up to you. We all have our own agency. We can all do whatever we want. So, but this is just how I do it. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions.